The Madman! It's time! We finally see all the cards. I even had the unique opportunity to play with some of these cards against some broadcasters a little bit early, so I have a slightly better idea of these cards in practice. This section is going to be Druid, Hunter, and Mage. This expansion in particular, I think, has a lot of internal synergy, so it's cool to see all of the cards together, and they're going to be tended to be rated the same if I think they go in the same deck. So let's start with the Token Druid package, which I think includes Acorn Bearer, Blessing of the Ancients, Dreamway Guardian, Keeper Steladris, as well as Crystal Song Portal. I think all of those cards make it into the general Token Druid package. You have Acorn Bearer being an efficient card that adds more cards. You have Dreamway Guardians being a cheap spell that summons two pretty decently statted minions. You have Blessing of Ancients being the card that buffs everything and gives you another buff. You have Keeper Steladris as just a general excellent 2-mana 2/3, which synergizes with your Power of the Wild and your Wrath and gets you lots of value. And you have Crystal Song Portal as your refill. Oh, and one more thing, I forgot to add another card into the package, the Forest Aid. I'm not entirely sure if it'll make it into the deck, but maybe. With 6 cards that could go into Token Druid, is this going to be the big resurgence of Token Druid? Well, I'm generally thinking, and I'm thinking of this in terms of how popular, how good will it be in the upcoming meta. I'm thinking Token Druid looks like about a tier 3 deck, so therefore I am rating Acorn Bearer, Blessing of Ancients, Dreamway Guardian, Crystal Song Portal, Keeper Steladris, 3 stars, and the Forest Shade 2 stars, because I'm not entirely sure if the Forest Shade will make it into that deck. You summon a bunch of stuff, and you get started with Acorn Bearer, which is pretty solid early. It's 3 minions in 1, which is great because you want to buff lots of minions. You have Dreamway Guardians, which puts out 2 minions for the price of 2. You bring out an old card, Landscaping, for 3 mana, which can put out 2 2/2s for 3. Keeper Steladris is good, as I mentioned, with Power of the Wild, which you would play in Token Druid anyways. You would potentially think about Wrath as well. But where Token Druid's power is in the classic cards of Soul of the Forest, which gives so many of your tokens the longevity to survive, and then once your opponent is out of clears, you just Savage Roar them. The idea that there is less AoE, in fact, in this entire expansion, there is no AoE clear printed, by the way. So the amount of AoE clears that are in the game have gone down by quite a bit. Force Aid could be the backbreaker. It's tough enough to clear wave after wave of your tokens. The Force Aid just fills up your board with treants, and not once but twice, they're going to run out of AoE. I actually think that the Force Aid could be the card that breaks people's back when played. You know, now that I just talked it out, I'm even going to up my rating of the Force Aid from 2 to 3 stars. Sure, there's still AoE out there, but you only have so many Hellfires now as Warlock and, all that jazz. You don't have both Mass Hysteria and Psychic Scream. You only have a Warpath and Brawl. Okay, Warrior is actually pretty good, but still. Since the Force Aid requires 2 separate AoEs, it could certainly happen, and maybe the Force Aid is actually the leading cause of Token Druid being good, as opposed to a card that maybe Token Druid adds into their deck. Sure, I'm starting to see it. I think all 6 of these cards will live and die together in the same deck, with perhaps only Keeper Steladris maybe seeing play in a different deck, and that different deck will be Heal Druid. So let's actually group up every one of the other cards. You'll notice that for Druid, they either grouped up into exactly Token Druid or into Heal Druid. So in Heal Druid, we have Crystal Power, Life Weaver, Crystal Stag, Lucent Bark, and I'll add in Keeper Steladris in there as well, because I think Heal Druid running Crystal Power will also run Keeper Steladris. It's always tough to make these calls. I was the one, by the way, who revealed Crystal Stag, so it hurts even a little bit more. But I don't think that Heal Druid has quite enough to pull it off. And it's for 2 reasons, actually. I both think that the payoff of having healed isn't strong enough, and I also think that there is not that much healing available. The entire package I rate 1 star. Crystal Power 1 star, Life Weaver 1 star, Crystal Stag 1 star, Lucent Bark 1 star. Perhaps a special note to say that Crystal Stag is the best one out of this package. And like, you look at it and it's like, all I have to do is restore 5 health. It's not even to me, it could be to my minions. And yes, it's actually really hard to restore 5 health. Like, you have to make some amount of effort, which means putting in some amount of cards that you don't want to put into your deck. And I will also talk about Life Weaver a little bit. There is some chance of Life Weaver with Dreamway Guardians, but in that case, like, you have to have taken damage, and you have to play the Life Weaver and then the Dreamway Guardians. It looks questionable. I don't think that 2-set combo is going to work. There is one neutral card printed that could give it a little bit of potential, and that card is Potion Vendor. Potion Vendor has the opportunity to broadly heal your board, but again, I don't really see the situation where you're going to have many damaged minions, and then you play exactly Life Weaver into Potion Vendor. It's like, eh. So basically, in short, this entire payoff is not worth that much for 5 mana for 2 4/4s. Lucent Bark looks slow and has a drastic weakness to silence, and for the decks that are looking to get the super value, it's like, there are better super values than an 8 mana 4/8 that keeps restoring itself. So yes, that package, meh. Other potential Druid decks, Mecha'thun Druid could still work. There's some ideas about using Floop with your Mecha'thun. There's also the Florist, discounting your Mecha'thun down to 3, and then Mecha'thun using a Voodoo Doll to target your Mecha'thun, and then Moonfiring the Doll to kill both the Doll and Mecha'thun. So 3-card Mecha'thun setup, you have to draw through your entire deck, which might be challenging for Druid, but they still have the Gadgetzan, and they still have Pounce, cheap cards. Hey, maybe in that deck, Crystal Power might actually see play. 1 mana, restore 5 health. And Crystal Power is also pretty decent with Keeper Steladris. You know what? Let's buff Crystal Power up to 2 stars. And you know what? Just because Keeper Steladris stands out as a card that could go into basically every single Druid archetype, let's bump Keeper Steladris up to 4 stars. It's the type of card that normally, if you were just rating on power level, you'd be like, yeah, 5 stars. But the thing is, it's questionable on if any Druids will become tier 1 decks, if enough Druids will even exist. For that reason, Steladris is simply 4 instead of 5. Hunter gets a few interesting toys. There's the idea of a spell damage hunter, there's the idea of a mech hunter, and then there's also the idea of just putting in a few extra beasts into the currently existing mid-range beast hunter. Of those possibilities, I think that the strongest one is simply putting in beasts into the already existing good deck. Mid-range hunter with beasts right now, while it lost a lot, it didn't lose, unlike every other deck out there pretty much. It didn't lose everything. It still has a base to operate off of, and it has cards that can fill in that base. Let's start off by talking about the 2 cards that could fit into mid-range hunter right now. To start with, Shimmerfly and Unleash the Beast. So Shimmerfly fills a needed hole in the loss of Dire Maul. Now there is no choice other than to run Shimmerfly if you want to run a 1 mana beast. Unleash the Beast, I'd say this card is in general better than Baited Arrow. A 5/5 Wyvern with Rush is really sweet, but where the extra juice comes out of Unleash the Beast is that you can put it in with Zul'jin. Zul'jin casting Unleash the Beast is just so strong. Very comparable to casting Emerald Spellstone. Very compelling to put that card into your mid-range hunter deck as a result. And it has Shimmerfly. Shimmerfly, 5 stars. Unleash the Beast, 5 stars. Another package that is in Hunter right now is this idea of spells. Arcane Fletcher, Rapid Fire, Marked Shot, and Varisa Windrunner, the legendary that makes this all happen. The idea of this deck is to play Varisa Windrunner, and then swing with your weapon on a later turn, giving yourself +2 spell damage, which you can use to cast a lot of spells, such as Rapid Fire. You're dealing 6 damage for 2 mana, so if you have 2 Rapid Fires, you can deal 12 damage for 4 mana, combine it with a kill command, dealing 7, that's 19 damage. So that's a lot of potential damage, but the main problem is very, very dependent on drawing Varisa Windrunner, and there might not be a critical mass of spells yet for this. And Hunter, you aren't really known for a deck that draws very many cards or gains health or has taunt. Also very weak to weapon removal. Seems questionable, so all in all, I'm rating this idea to not be very powerful, with Varisa Windrunner being 2 stars, Rapid Fire being 2 stars, Arcane Fletcher being 2 stars, and Marked Shot being 2 stars. Of this package, Marked Shot is notably the card that could also see play, replacing Flanking Strike. But really, there's no card that can replace Flanking Strike. The 3/3 that you summoned on tempo was really important for mid-range hunter. I feel like Marked Shot is too slow in that deck. I think instead of Marked Shot, you would simply run Baited Arrow if you were to run a similar card. And the other package we have in terms of hunter is the Mech Hunter / Death Rattle package with Ursatron, Oblivitron, and 9 lives. So the idea of the deck is fairly straightforward. You want to run the good mech cards along with Fireworks Tech in the deck. Ursatron can get you your Spider Bomb, it can get you your Ziliax. 9 lives, when you're casting it on Ursatron, becomes similar to Arcane Intellect because you get to draw 2 cards and you even get to fish. 9 lives with Spider Bomb gets to be a deadly shot, which draws you a Spider Bomb. Pretty sweet. There's also the potential of Mechanical Whelp being the big 9 lives activator. Seems really slow to me though. For that reason, Ursatron 1 star, Oblivitron 1 star, 9 lives 1 star. And then finally, the card that doesn't seem to fit any of those archetypes, Hunting Party. This is meant for a late game control hunter, which boards beasts and then copies them in your hand. That sounds insane. 1 star. How could that possibly work? Mage is a really tough class to evaluate. A lot of these cards are designed for a small mage deck. So let's start with the small mage, tempo mage package then, which includes Ray of Frost, Magic Dart Frog, Kirin Tor Tricaster, Magic Trick, Mana Cyclone, the big card. Mana Cyclone can generate a lot of spells. It's the fuel that can keep tempo mage going. Especially if you're running so many small spells, you certainly need a lot of cards to keep going. Also, on the topic of small spells, Shooting Star and Arcane Explosion are very strong with Kirin Tor Tricasters +3 spell damage. Similar to how they were strong with Arcane Anomaly, but now you have another spell damage backup card to go with it. So, do I think Tempo Mage is going to be a good deck in the next metagame? Jury's out on that one, I think. I'm thinking it's going to be around tier 3. I found that the loss of Mana Worm was very, very painful, and that it's tough to find a good turn 2 card to stick on the board. Mana Cyclone being the big card of that deck, 3 stars. Kirin Tor Tricaster, 3 stars. The rest of the cards I'm not actually sure will make it into the deck. I found playing with Magic Dart Frog to be very disappointing. 2 stars. Ray of Frost, is it really that good just to be able to throw into the Mana Cyclone to be playing these spells that aren't very good? So I'm not sure. 2 stars. And Magic Trick, I think even worse than Ray of Frost, is a card that isn't guaranteed to give you a great card. Also 2 stars. Even though you're not running all of the cheap spells, Mana Cyclone should still be quite good with the Arcane Missiles, with the Frostbolt, with your Cinderstorm. Reminds me a lot of an excellent card, Stargazer Luna. In fact, with Stargazer Luna and Mana Cyclone, you could keep going with Tempo Mage, which is losing Aluneth. On the other side of this, we have tools for a Summon Mage, or I'm going to generally lump this into a Control Mage thing. Khadgar, Conjurer's Calling, Power of Creation, and then we've got 2 generally good Control Mage cards, Messenger Raven and Calicos. Certainly the loss of Dragon's Fury is a huge hit to Control Mage, but perhaps the tools are still there. Maybe Khadgar Power of Creation creates the tempo required to get the Control Mage into a really dominant situation in the late game, and certainly Khadgar plus Janelle looks pretty good, summoning 2 Ragnaros. Khadgar plus Conjurer's Calling is also looking promising, potentially. So I am going to give Khadgar 4 stars. I don't know if it's going to combine with Power of Creation, or if it's going to combine with Conjurer's Calling, or perhaps it'll combine with something completely else. But I'm going to give Power of Creation 3 stars, and Conjurer's Calling also 3 stars. And then Calicos I'm going to give 4 stars as a great control mage ender. Also dragon, control mage could use that dragon tag to good effect, running the whole dragon package in it with it. And then Messenger Raven is a good filler card in this control mage. I'll give it 3 stars. That big tempo swing when you lay down the Khadgar and the Janella and you summon 2 Ragnaros, I think that's going to be the trademark of this new control mage deck. And then it has a lot of tools to stay alive in the meantime, especially if you go with the dragon package. One more thing that'll really help out this control mage is the neutral card, Sunreaver War Mage. That's a very nice efficient tempo card that control mage would love to just slot into their decks, and I think that card will really help the control mage style.